Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of I Thought You'd Like to Know. My name is Sebastian Mahfood, and I'm here today speaking with one of the authors of Content Area Reading, A Practical Guide. This book was co-authored by Paula Witkowski and Dianne Swenson Koehnecke of Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri. I have with me today Dianne Swenson Koehnecke to talk about her book. Hello, Dianne, and welcome to the show.
Hi. Good to be here.
Well, I'm glad you were able to make time for us this afternoon. Well, I'd like to talk about your book. I have a copy of it here in hand. I am the publisher of En Route Books and Media, and therefore the publisher of this book. And as we were putting this project together, I was just delighted by what you have prepared as a resource for teachers and for homeschooling parents and for college professors and whoever else can make practical use of a book in the area of content area reading. So if we could begin with what you can tell us about you and your co-author to provide a background for our discussion about your book. What is it that you do? What is your field?
Okay, well, Paula and I, both Webster University, and we both taught undergraduate and graduate content area reading courses. But we were really disappointed because we couldn't find a decent textbook or any kind of decent. We'd always have to use all these supplementary materials to get our students knowledge and being able to use all these concepts that we have now put in our book. And because of our, I guess you could say it was disappointment, and it was really annoying too, and our students didn't like it either, so we decided, well, what can we do? So in the year 2010, Paula and I decided the best thing we could do is to write our own textbook. So that's when the project began, 2010. And we kind of reviewed all the different things that we thought should be in a content area reading, a practical guide book. So as we thought about all the different areas, we have different chapters. And we ended up with 11 chapters. Some things that you think all students would know, for example, like the before reading, the during reading, and the after reading. I discovered they don't know. I don't know why they didn't learn that in high school. Maybe a few did, but the majority really didn't. And good readers, they know how to read the different textbooks. They can pick it up by themselves. But I even remember when I was at the University of Minnesota, I never used to read the preface of a book. And now I'm thinking how important that is because it tells you why the author wrote the book and what the purpose is and how you can read it. So with all these different ideas racing through our brains, we then divided up into different areas that each of us wanted to write about. And one semester I even had a course release. And we had a work study student that also helped us with a lot of things in the book, especially, and what you have done is a great job also with the color schemes and the pictures and all that. So I don't know if you want me to go through an entire review of the book, but that's pretty much the background of Paula and me and why we decided to write this book. We both have PhDs. Mine is in English education and teaching with content area reading as an emphasis. Paula's is in reading. Both of us were reading specialists, and so we have a lot in common.
Well, thank you for that, Dianne. It does take a reading specialist to be able to identify the problems that our children have in reading. And it's often the case, especially at the college level, that we think, okay, we've gone through, 13 years of education from K through 12, and that we've developed habits that are sufficient to enable us to progress into our college years. But the reality is we know how to read on the high school level or on the middle school level or on the elementary school level, but in entering the world of the academy, there is a new kind of reading that we have to do. We do have to read things like forewords and introductions, and we do have to engage more intentionally in the kind of reading, especially because of the volume of material that we're being asked to read, the kind of reading that is going to enable us to be successful not only in the general education courses, those first 2 years of our college experience, but also in the major area courses that we start hitting more specifically in our junior and our senior years. And when I was teaching in graduate school, it was the same thing. I taught a course on graduate-level writing, which required some background information on graduate-level reading. And my students said, well, didn't we learn how to read as undergrads? And I said, yes, you've mastered the skills for your undergraduate career, but now there are skills for your graduate career, and then later for your doctoral work that you also have to master. So it's a never-ending process. Do you receive much feedback in colleges from students who say, well, I've already learned how to read. Why do I need to continue developing skills in this area? Do you receive that kind of feedback, and how do you respond if you do?
You know, it's interesting to me that we really didn't get so much of this feedback, as I guess it's because, well, the course is required for one thing, but the students are just amazed that they didn't get it in high school. They said, why didn't we get this? Why couldn't we have had all these things in high school? And I tell them pretty much what you've already covered. Well, it's a different type of reading. It's a lot more voluminous as far as the amount of material that you're going to be reading. And you're also, you have to do all these general things those first 2 years, which you also hit upon that area, that it's not just math, it's not just history. You have to take a wide range of courses. And you read these textbooks, whatever the reading material that's given to you, you read it in different ways. And that's pretty much, students were grateful to us. Quite frankly, they just were amazed that they were learning all these new concepts. And I would think if I were going to be a leader of the freshmen, all freshmen at colleges, I would recommend that this book be part of a course, because I think it's essential. I think they really need more than just the basics, but what good readers do, what good teachers do, how to be motivated, how to skim, scan, and survey, how to look at the introduction and the summary so that they remember things, how to all the different methods that we give them. And then we also come up with all the new things that are currently in vogue and going to stay, I think, around for a while, like STEM and STEAM and trade books. You'd be amazed at the number of teachers and students that don't know what a trade book is, which is anything that isn't a textbook. And good teachers are already using lots of trade books in their classrooms, but we'd like to see a lot more. So I think all the chapters, each chapter is useful, not just for the teachers teaching it, but also for the students. So I would say what you have already indicated, that teachers can use this book, but also students. It's also useful, especially for the college students. And the people who homeschool, we touched on that before. I just got back from a pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and one of the people in the group was with her daughter, and she was homeschooling her 4 children. So she said, I could use this book. Do you have extra copies of this book? And I thought, this is exactly, there's a lot of markets that this book would serve. And when I was at the University of St. Louis University, our motto was of service to others. And I think that this book fulfills that, serving others and helping them to know how to read more effectively and utilize all these different tools so that they not only know how to read, but remember and understand what they read.
Now, you just said something very interesting. You teach in a university, at Webster University, in a college program. But you had said that you were amazed, and the students themselves are amazed, when they come into an understanding of these concepts, that they had not been taught these things before. How valuable do you think a book like this would be? I mean, if they could come to college already knowing these things, how valuable would a book like this be in their high school classrooms?
Well, I think it would be extremely valuable, because if they already had these concepts in high school, it would be so much easier to teach them all. I mean, they'd know what to do. And I think that if the teachers in middle and high schools had this text and they used it with their students. And actually for the high school students, they could also use it because it's written in a very user-friendly language, and there's a lot of color in it, which we really wanted to preserve, and illustrations and just things to keep them reading. I think it would make teachers, university professors' jobs much easier, and their students would also do much better.
Well, then you would be out of a job. If everybody...
Well, that's okay with me. I mean, I think that, even if I had been taught these, well, good readers sometimes, you probably did a lot of these anyway because you're a good reader. But so many people don't have these skills, and this could be a refresher for them. I mean, you usually don't get them all put into one book. An English teacher may teach certain things. A science teacher may teach other things. But to put all the different tools in what we really emphasize the before, during, and after reading concepts that are essential if students are going to really even enjoy. And reading for pleasure, I can read a textbook with pleasure if it's well written. And I have to say, I enjoyed writing this book. It wasn't tedious. It went really quickly, and we edited each other's chapters. We spent a lot of time with each other so that there were no surprises, and we worked well together. I think that helped when we were going through what we wanted the students to know, what we wanted them to comprehend, and how useful it would be to them and to the teachers as well.
Well, certainly, and the fact that you, as two co-authors, put together a book that reads in one authorial voice is a testament to the teamwork that you and Paula put into this. That's hard to do, to get two authors who are co-authoring the same work to come together into a single voice in the way that you've done it.
Well, thank you.
So I have a question for you. I'm going to read one of your concepts, and then maybe, if you don't mind, to discuss it a little bit. What page are you on? I've got the book in front of me. I'm on page 4.
Okay.
And I'm just in the section of what good readers do.
Yes.
So, and this is the very beginning of the book. This is how you open it, and
right.
And provide a good foundation for what comes ahead of that. So you write, good readers are actively engaged in what they're reading. At least they are most of the time. What does it mean to be actively engaged in what it is that we're reading?
Well, I'll give you an example. I do swim classes at the Y, and I do the aerobic swim class, and I am actively engaged. I'm moving my body. I'm listening to the instructions. My mind doesn't wander. I am 100% engaged in that reading, and that's exactly, in this case, it's in the moving and the swim exercises. So that's the same thing with reading. Nothing is distracting them. They're actively engaged. They know how to think about what they read. They know how to make sense of it. They also know how to organize it, and they know how, if a test comes up, they don't get the test anxiety as much because they know what to prepare for, and they can also write a paper. So I think the more that they become engaged and the better they know these skills that we give them, the better they become as readers. So we have certain questions we ask them. Are they doing these things? And if they do these things, well, they will definitely improve and become engaged readers, active readers.
So if you would, what are some of the skills that you would recommend? Maybe just a few. Okay,
well, we ask the students to monitor your comprehension. In other words, they keep track themselves of what they're learning. And we also ask them to make connections, not just to their own life, but other information they might already have read or known about, even if they saw it on Twitter or if they read it in Google. And also world events, if they can connect it to world events. Visualization is an excellent skill to have, so I always try making pictures in my mind. In fact, we actually know that good readers, if they're reading a book of fiction, for example, it's like a movie for them. They see the characters. And it can be the same with nonfiction and with textbooks. They visualize what they see and what they read about. And then, of course, from this visualization, they then can make inferences. So they go beyond what they actually read literally in the text. And that's a higher level skill. I infer this because I've read a certain thing. I'm going to fill in the blank. So let's say, an example we give, let's say somebody says, you need to bring your umbrella. Well, we had a lot of that in Jerusalem where we needed to bring our umbrella so we could infer there's rain out there. The other thing a lot of students don't do, they don't even think about doing, but it's asking questions before they even start reading. If you turn every subhead into a question, one of our subheads in this chapter is evidence and accountability. What is evidence and accountability? And then you're reading to find out the answer to your question. The other really important skill is deciding what's important and what you don't need to spend so much emphasis on. And once you're able to do that, oftentimes it might be the topic sentence of a paragraph, but maybe at the end, the summary will review the main points. So I always read if there's in our book there is an introduction and a summary. That helps me then to decide what's important. And that leads right into the final one. When you're summarizing this chapter, you're synthesizing information, and you continue to do that, putting it all together.
So if I'm actively reading, then and I'm making connections to other things that I've read before or other events that I've experienced or other things going on in my life or whatever, I'm going to have a better chance of retaining what I'm reading. If we were to put this on, say, for instance, a taxonomy of learning, I'm going to have a better engagement in the knowledge that I'm acquiring, a better comprehension of that knowledge, and a better way in which to apply that knowledge to practical life experiences.
Exactly. How to read and remember what you read so that it does all of the things that you just mentioned.
So you have a section called After Reading. Could you talk about a bit about that? What do we do after we read?
Okay, so now I'm going to go to our after reading. Believe me, we spent so much time on after reading because a lot of students think, oh, well, I'm going to do this before reading, and I'm going to read the thing, but I don't need to do anything after I finish.
Right.
And after reading is when you're going to put it in your mind, in your memory, so that it stays there. So the things that we do, and I'm sure you do because you're a good reader, is that you reflect on what you've read. So I read something, I'm done reading it, I think about it, and I reflect on it. So I think about it, I think about what I've read, and I reflect on it. And then another really useful tactic or tool is to summarize it. If I can put it in my own words, often if you write it down, you'll remember it longer. But the main thing is to be able to summarize what you read. And if you're able to do that, you have a good start on keeping it in that long-term memory as well as the short-term memory. We find students can do something to get an A on a test. They can memorize it all. But then if they don't put it into their long-term memory with the after-reading concept, it doesn't stay there. So that is another extremely important thing to do.
And I imagine it's particularly important for college environments where you really do have 5 or 6 classes a semester, and you're reading a lot of things from all the various classes. And you've got to sit down and take a test, or you've got to write a paper, you've got to do something as a product to demonstrate that you've understood what it is that you've read and that you can apply it. Your strategies would help students organize what it is that they're reading across a spectrum in their curriculum in a way that they may not know going into college how to do.
Exactly. But I would say that if a good high school teacher in his or her subject area does these before, during, and after reading practices, that they can help their students so that by the time they get to college, this would be more of a review, and they'd still like reading the book because it's user-friendly and it reinforces what they've learned. Unfortunately, for Paul and for me, we didn't find this to be the case. We didn't find that they did that. But once they have that background brainstorming and they draft and they write and they revisit it, and then they finally edit everything that they've done in if they've read a paper, for example, and they publish the finished product, that's a good way to put it into that long-term with so many different subjects. As you say, it's really the volume of material and the variety at the college level. But I noticed that the juniors and seniors in all those college prep classes that my own children took, it was about as intense as a lot of the freshman courses might be.
You have an entire chapter on the languages of different content areas, and Chapter 5 is subtitled Vocabulary.
Yes.
Could you talk about different content areas and the different languages that we find within each? Beginning.
That was one of my, yes, thank you. That was one of my favorite chapters because you can't read an English book, an English, let's say it's a novel, the same way you can a math formula. They're different things. So, for example, we give students, we put English, language arts, and social studies and music together. And then we give them a specific example of an activity. Then we have a lesson they can do. In this case, I absolutely really like Bob Dylan. So for my example, I used something that Bob Dylan sang with God on Our Side back in the 60s and 70s. And then the students end up doing literature circles. Daniels came up with a concept called literature circles, where the students themselves become discussion directors. They illuminate the literature. They find different vocabulary words that are interesting to them or unusual, or maybe they don't know it. They connect these things to different experiences they've had, other books they may have read, other songs they may have sung, and then they illustrate. It can be a picture, but it could be a graphic too, which is the meaning of, in this case, it's a song. You may be familiar with Venn diagrams. We also use Venn diagrams to divide things, what's similar, what's different, what's the same. And you can do that in the English world, but in the math world, our example is the mean, the median, the mode. We do statistics. We give them a statistical lesson. And for English language learners, we have several concepts, and then we have an exercise they can do. For special education, we give them a crossword puzzle. For art, we have several different terms, and then we have some really interesting activities in which they create an image with as many terms from ones that we've given them, so they really draw their own picture. And it's not like they have to be artists, but they're using these different terms that otherwise they wouldn't know, and they're taking art. So the science, they get the different terms, but then we do again some really interesting. There was a comedian, I don't know if you remember him, it may have been before your time. Rich Hall was his name, but He created Sniglets. Did you remember him?
I remember Sniglets, yeah.
Yeah, and this was in the 80s, so it was a great reading strategy to build more phonic understanding. And we put the thing in Sniglets, and then at the end of the chapter we give them the answers so they can check everything out. But it's a fun chapter, plus it shows them how to read different subject areas and how to improve their vocabulary in these subject areas.
Sure, you even have an area for foreign languages. And
yes, we do.
How to engage that. How would you advise a student to read in a language that's not his own?
One thing I think on stage, just traveling to various countries and now just being in Israel, other countries, the students and the adults that have, the younger adults, they have at least 2 to 3 languages that they're fluent. And I know that some of the schools and some of the homeschoolers do the same thing, where they give their students, the best way, of course, is through speech. I remember I went to a Catholic college my freshman year, the College of St. Benedict in Minnesota, and the minute we walked in the door, we spoke German the whole class, the entire class. We also did the other things, the conjugation. So the example that we put in here has been a German example because we have a professor who teaches German, and just basics of things that you need to know: what your name is, what is your name, hello, things you need to do if you're going to the country, just some basic things. And then We have students label the pictures in the room of different objects, and it starts out very simply, but we also include vocabulary and grammar in it. And then we would have the students go to labs to do things that we don't do when we're speaking the language in the classroom. So what we've given them really is basically a chart of simple terms that they can all use. And the activity, you may think this is too advanced, but you would be amazed at the students that can do this. Translate a movie scene into German or whatever language you're studying and perform it. They love that. They love doing that. And they're very good at it, too. You
speak on page 59. You talk about readability levels, and you provide 3 of them: independent, instructional, and frustration. Could you talk a little about those?
Yes. The independent level is where we're at when we can read it by ourselves. We don't need any kind of instruction. We get it. We understand the material. We comprehend it. We can, take these tools in so we remember it, put it in our brains, and we got it. If you're in the instructional level, it doesn't mean that you can't read it, because you can, but you do need help. You need some techniques, some strategies to help you so that you do understand it. When you're at the frustration level, forget it. It's just way too difficult. And if you keep trying to push someone who's at a frustration level, all you do is make them hate reading. And you don't want to do that. So that's how we discover, by giving the students material, what level they're at, and then we can individually design the material for them. The most common formula in the United States is the Lexile formula. It's used in the majority of textbooks, but you have to pay a lot for this software program, and it does give you the reading ability. The Fry formula, and I did get permission from Kathy Fry to use this formula in the book, is where you count the number of words, you count the number of syllables, and then you come up with a solution as to what the book is. And you may say, oh, my book is only at a 6th grade level. That means it's not written well. Well, that's not the case. If you've ever read Hemingway, and you know that he writes simply, but it's not simple at all. So the reading level, they find that really if you're a 5th to 6th grade level, that's good reading, or good writing, and good for understanding. Now, a lot of the textbooks may, however, be written at the College 2, College 3, so that would be a much more advanced level that you can find out just by doing the Fry formula. The third one is the easiest. It's the one I always do. It's the Flesch-Kincaid formula, and that's on your computer if you have Word. The one that we used, we had an old Word program at the time at Webster, so we used, I think it was a 2013 or 2010. But it does actually give you check to show the readability level, and then you do a spell check. And when you finish checking the passage, it shows you not only your readability level, but it also shows you whether it's going to be interesting to the reader or it's going to be difficult. So if you look on page 64, for example, it gives you the words, the characters, the paragraphs, the averages, but the readability is how many passive, and a passive sentence is one that uses the to-be verbs, such as is, was, were. What you want is as many active sentences as possible. And then the Flesch reading ease, how easy is it? If it's in this case, it was at a lower 64%, so it's harder to read. And then the grade level set, and this was 8th grade level. So you can do that quickly. And whenever I do a lot of writing for different publications, and when I do that, I always use the Flesch-Kincaid because it's fast. But as I said, you can certainly, if you're in the school system, especially grades K through 12, they usually have a Lexile, and they use that. And anyone can do the Fry by hand and look at the chart. You can look that up even online. It's available.
So understanding something then about the science of reading helps improve our ability to write, if I understand you correctly.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is very interesting to learn that Microsoft Word itself has its own readability scale in terms of how many passive sentences and you pronounce this the Fleisch reading base?
Flesch. But Flesch Kincaid,
What?
but they didn't come up with it. These two scientists, brilliant people, came up with the formula, and then Word adopted it and put it into their program, into their software. It was used, I think, by the Army. I think it was used by the Army at first.
And what would the Army have used it for in terms of training?
Yes, in terms of
recruits?
training, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I had a friend once who wanted to turn his dissertation into a self-help book. And his dissertation was filled with 50-word sentences that extended into paragraphs that were a page and a half or 2 pages long, and where all the words were 4 or 5 syllables long each. And I said, well, who do you expect will be the reader for your book? And he said, well, the average person who goes into the self-help section in the bookstore. And I said, oh.
No.
So he and I went to the self-help section in a bookstore, and I said, pick out any book. And he picked out a book, and I said, how many words per sentence? And he told me, and I said, how many syllables per word? And he told me. And I said, how many sentences per paragraph? And he told me. And that was all the instruction he needed to realize that what he had written would not be marketable for the audience.
No way.
What kind of advice do you give to writers who are trying to write for a particular reading audience?
Well, one of the things is the raft technique, where they need to know what the role is, what their particular role is, who the audience is going to be, and also how they can tailor it to fit that audience. Because it does make a difference. If you just write something and you don't know who your audience is and you don't know how to address that audience and make it interesting and applicable to that audience, it's not going to work. So that's part of the thing about writing. Sometimes textbooks that teachers will order, they don't achieve any of these particular things, but yet the students, well, they're assigned to read them. A lot of times they don't read them because they're boring and they haven't considered the audience.
So your book does more than teach how to engage in content area reading. Your book provides the foundation for readers, for students who are exposed to this material, to become good writers for particular audiences.
I happen, just like you, I'm a writer. I love writing, always have. But it can be very frustrating, and especially if you're not given enough information from a teacher about, the subject and who the audience is, and you have to decide and make all this up yourself. You may not do as well as you wish. So the goal for us, that's why I think writing this book was such a pleasure for us. It was something that we were extremely interested in. We wanted to serve others, teachers and students, and we not only did we like it, but we felt it was important. Really important that our students and our teachers not only get the information, but apply it, use it. So it's a user-friendly book, and it can help students to write better than they may have originally.
You have a whole section on digital literacy. Could you talk about the importance of that in terms of we as readers encounter many opportunities to read material that is not presented in the form of a book. In fact, some of it is very much soundbite material. But others that we find come in the form of blogs or in the form of Facebook postings, and in some cases we're not even dealing with the printed word. We're dealing with videographic text. Such as those we find on YouTube or those we find on Facebook or wherever people post videos. How do we? What's the importance of learning how to read in our hyper-digital society today?
You brought up an extremely important question with the media literacy, because if you just watch students, unless they're told, my granddaughter, who's a 7th grader, is not allowed to have her phone on. I think the teachers collect them in the morning. Otherwise, I know that my students, they're glued to their phones. They're glued to the blogs, the Facebook, the emails, the texting, really. And Facebook is for older people. They're on Snapchat. So all of these things, they're different than what Paula and I had as children. It just started with television. We even remember things like Howdy Doody back in the old days. But today, media is everything. I mean, they may not want to read the textbook, but they're certainly going to look at the media on their phones, on their computers, on their iPads. So we tried to make our textbook as appealing as if they were reading something on an iPad or on a computer or even on their phone, because it really does make a difference. And really, in about 2010, a man named Lou described how much that reading was changing, and the challenge is really to recognize the need to increase in professional development for educators so they can improve technology in their classrooms. There are a lot of, if you've heard the term Luddites, I came across one recently who just didn't know how to do anything on this pilgrimage, so I had to set everything up, which I was happy to do. But the kids can do it. That's the thing. If you don't know how to do something, just ask your child, just ask another young person, and they usually know the answers. So there's a lot of evidence. I name a lot of different people who have said that the digital literacies in combination with the multimodal text can be really useful. So when we say, they should use trade books, we're also talking about graphic novels. We're talking about blogs. We're talking about one of the men on our pilgrimage. He has a blog that has 10,000 readers. So I think it's important, however, and Lou is the one that came up with all this, that we just read it and don't think it's true, that we look at the bias of the author. Who is this author? A lot of students don't question it, but it's important to question it. What about how reliable is it? How accurate is it? And have they synthesized the information? Sometimes, I know I went to a presentation, a national conference, and the presenter showed us this website, and it turned out to be Ku Klux Klan. But you had to really look deep to find it. So that's why I think it's important for the students to know, not just know all the apps, not just load them on their phones and their iPads and their computers, but also to be really good critical readers of the apps. And as you say, the visual as well, because they're visual learners today.
So how to read is more than simply a matter of collecting knowledge from what it is that you're reading, but it's also a matter of trying to understand and interpret the bias and the agenda or whatever it is that somebody else is trying to draw them into.
Exactly. I really like the way you summarize that, Sebastian.
In the world of En route Books and Media, in the world of WCAT Radio, we are very much involved in faith formation and in engaging our children, our friends, and the world of Catholic readers in who it is we are as a people of God and as members of the Catholic Church. What can Catholics, do you think, in particular draw from the teaching that's in your book?
That's a really good question. Our faith formation is what our parish is doing right now, and it's extremely important. And I think that this book can be used by parents who are homeschooling, by students and teachers, because it is faith formation. You want your students to do better. You want them to be, I hate to use the word holy, but I guess you would say good people that feel good about themselves, that have a purpose for what they're doing. And I think that our book can give them that, a purpose, the meaning, and of course the religious aspect goes deeper than just what I'm telling you, but that's a part of it. And in the faith formation process, when they feel good about themselves, when they're reading better, when they're reading more fluently, when they remember what they read, when they know all these techniques, they can feel closer to God, closer to faith, closer to, and as a Catholic myself, I just see it. I mean, I see it all the time. I could see it on the students' faces. I mean, it was like a light bulb went off. And they'd say, well, why didn't we learn these things in high school? Or they'd say, wow. And I think Catholic schools have a really good opportunity if they use these books, because English teachers generally know a lot of things about reading, but the science teachers may never have learned how to read their textbook, or the math teachers. They just give the formula and they explain the formula, but they don't really talk about how to read it. And I think that leads to frustration sometimes. I know it did for me in some of the fields that I wasn't as good at. And I think, well, I'm listening to Matthew Kelly's Dynamic Catholic every day, and today's was having a purpose and finding your purpose. And I think that's what the faith formation does, and that this book can help the people, the students, the teachers, and the students to do.
Certainly. So there's really two sides to that. One is to understand that when we do encounter perhaps negative media that speaks against our faith, that we can interpret it in a way that where we know, okay, this is propaganda coming from any particular organization that may have an agenda against the Catholic faith. And then on the other side of that coin, when we do read about our faith and about who it is we are as Christians, as Catholics, we're able to better understand what that means for us and for the way in which we are called to shape and live our lives.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. You really summarized it well when you said that's the faith formation aspect, and it goes along with your understanding and critical assessment of what you're seeing or reading.
I think your book helps, yours and Paula's book, I think your book helps us better understand how to interpret the world in which we live, beyond the subject matter of the courses that we take as students, and beyond the content of the various things that we'll be writing ourselves in response to what it is that we're reading. But just life itself, I think, is supported in many ways through the foundational principles you've provided. And I wanted to thank you, not only as the publisher and person who helped you bring this book into being, into accessibility to a popular audience, but as a Catholic and as somebody who is himself endeavoring to raise his children in our faith.
Thank you. That's a high compliment, but that is exactly what we wanted to do. And I've always felt that to serve others, that it started at a young age with faith formation, and it's continued. And that's what we're trying to do in our book: help our students and our teachers and our people faith formed, and really appreciate the fact that we have the ability to critically look at these aspects and make our own decisions based on our faith. So
what are your next steps? Do you have another book that you're thinking of writing?
Well, the big thing is marketing right now. We'd like to get this book out into the teachers' hands, into the students' hands. So that's pretty much why I even contacted you. And I don't know if you do a lot of conferences or things like that, but I'm interested in promoting, because I'm such a strong believer, and I know Paula is too. I know Paula is feels the same way I do. So that's pretty much where we're at. There's a lot of writing projects. I'm doing some religious projects right now. Getting back from the pilgrimage, I'm going to try to do some type of summary of something that changed my life, this pilgrimage to the Holy Land. And I have a lot of other projects like that, but essentially my number one priority right now is marketing our text to people who can use it and can benefit from it.
We'll have to have you back on another show to talk about your pilgrimage, because that's an exciting topic and something that...
It certainly was. It changed my life. I would recommend it, that you and Stephanie go on a pilgrimage, because you will never be the same. You will never read Scripture the same. Your spiritual life will be changed. Historically, you will understand all these, where Jesus walked, where Jesus talked. And whatever group you're with, you'll become really community-centered and really think about other people and care for them.
Well, thank you for that recommendation. And it's definitely on the list of things to do
Good.
As I move forward. I got close once. I got to the Sinai Peninsula, and
oh wow, you were close.
Yeah, we climbed to the top of Mount Sinai and we spent the night up there. And a group of us back when I was in the Peace Corps. And
wonderful.
And when we were coming down, we thought, hey, maybe we could go to the Holy Lands. But it was 1995, and travel was a bit risky in that part of the world at that time. So,
but I felt totally safe in Israel. I mean, you want to stay with your group, but I did feel safe. There were assault weapons, and there were, police. They were protecting us. So when they came through our bus, we saw them, a group of them. They're in the pose with the assault weapon, but it is safe. And Tel Aviv is a world-class #1 city. So people who are so alarmed, we didn't go to those places. We weren't in the areas where there's, and I do think that at least for us, during the time we were there, we were indeed safe and in the Lord's hands.
Well, to be praised. Dianne, thank you so very much for talking with us today about your book, Content Area Reading, A Practical Guide. And this is currently available on En Route Books and Media's website or on Amazon.com or wherever good books are sold. If you go into a bookstore and you don't see it there, you can ask the bookstore manager to order a copy, and it will be there on the quick. The fastest way to order would be online through Amazon. Get 2-day delivery. Dianne, thank you, and God bless, and I look forward to having you back on another episode of one of the shows on WCAT Radio.
Thank you, Sebastian. I really enjoyed our visit. Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.